What's up, guys? Welcome back to the infamous project. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on the 56 ramp truck sitting here behind me. So if you did not see the first video, make sure you go and check it out, because I go through all the details of what it took to put this 7.3 liter Godzilla backed by a 6R 140 transmission, where, man, that transmission is almost as big as the motor itself, but we managed to get it to fit in this truck. Now, we had to do a 3-inch body lift. We had to do a little bit of clearancing here and there. So make sure to check out that video if you guys are interested in stuffing one of these new Godzillas into one of your old hot rods. More importantly, if you are looking for a Godzilla power plant and drivetrain, make sure you check out my website, theinfamousproject.com, because I actually sell the full drivetrain packages with control pack options and everything that you need to get this swapped into your old truck, or potentially maybe even your Fox body. So be sure to check that out. Today I want to go over a few little update items, because now I'm into the nitty-gritty. Honestly, getting the power plant to fit is one thing, but then it's fuel system, then it's wiring, then it's cooling, then it's all of those little things you have to worry about. So give you a bit of an update. You can see somewhat the front end of the truck is back on. The radiator's on a big gangster lean. We'll get into that in a minute. So stay tuned so I can give you the full lowdown of where I'm at with this swap. All right, guys, so I've spent a couple days on all the miscellaneous wrap-up items so that I can get myself in a position to fire this beast up for the first time. So the largest headache after just getting the drivetrain in was probably the fuel system. So you can see the gas tank here, and I alluded to it in my last video. I had to find another tank that would fit, so I got a 2000 F-150 30-gallon tank, aeromotive pump. All of that is plumbed up underneath the ramp deck there, and you can see some wiring laying on the ground because, well, I got to get my wiring done for the fuel pump and the sending unit for the gauge. So once that's wrapped up, I'm going to get the filter / regulator in place, and then I'll be able to run my final line up to the fuel rail, which is actually hiding back here. So Godzilla motors actually run a returnless style system. So here is our inlet, goes through this fuel rail over to the passenger side and that fuel rail, and then that is all. So what will happen is that the fuel filter / regulator that I got will actually provide a return back to the pump. If you look a little bit more closely here, you're going to notice that I actually have the ECM, and it is not bolted down, just kind of sitting here because I'm trying to figure out where the home for that guy is going to be, and it's probably not going to be too far off from where you see it right now. You're also going to notice I've got the actual control pack wiring all run back there with the box mounted up on the top portion of the firewall there, and started running all my appropriate cabling. I got this guy that's going into the vehicle. I need to get myself a grommet for there. And I believe I already went over the fact that I got the throttle pedal installed and that I was trying to figure out the steering column situation. So on the inside here, there's really not too many wires to deal with. I've already got the throttle pedal connector plugged in, and this is the wire that goes to our fuel pump. And we got brake switch, ignition, and our shifting wires, tow haul to hook up. So this is really, that's nothing. In terms of being able to wire some stuff up to get this thing to fire, that's going to be easy peasy. And then we got our OBD2 connector sitting there. Again, I kind of went through that in the last video. But the most important thing is running all of these powers and all of these grounds. And grounds are so important, guys. The Godzilla actually has ground straps on the back of each cylinder head that looks like this. So I've got this grounded to the cab, got the harness grounded, our starter wires going down to the starter solenoid here. And we have this big wire. Of course, this is all going to get cleaned up. This is just kind of like, let me get all the wiring in place to make sure that everything is going to work. So the one thing about this truck, the battery is actually here. So you can see here's all of our cables routing down here. I got some new terminals on here that have multiple connection points because I wanted to make sure that everything gets a home and I don't end up with a terminal that's pretty much acting as a distribution point. So got everything for the control pack, for the alternator, for the starter, and the main ground that goes to the block. And then I got another ground that I created here that's going to the frame of the truck, so that way we have good ground connectivity between all of the frame and the chassis, and then everything that gets grounded through the body and everything else. So one thing that I wanted to show with you guys, and I got to get down under the truck to show you, is I love being able to repurpose stuff, especially factory stuff. And this was actually wiring related. So I'm going to show you this right now. Let's get under here. Welcome to the underside of the truck here. And if you look at this harness, that's got all of this lovely harness tape. It's actually got like some heat protective loom on it, just because it is a little bit closer to some of the exhaust system that we can see right here. So if you remember, we actually managed to use the factory Y pipe in here. We cut the Y so that we can run duals, but everything fit with what we were working with. But this wiring harness here actually used to run forward, so along the front side of the block, and would go up to the battery. And this harness contains the main lead that goes to the starter in terms of power, your main 12 volts. It has the solenoid wire, so the one that actually engages the solenoid, or triggers the solenoid rather, to be able to engage the starter. And then it has a main ground wire, which you can see I've got connected right here onto the transmission. So I actually managed to keep this factory harness slash wire and flip it around so that it's facing towards the back and up to the battery area underneath the cab on the passenger side. So that was a really cool win. And, here's another shot of the Y pipe. Again, the mount, or the hanger in the factory position. And we cut it back there, and you can see there's the factory dual exhaust pipe there and the factory dual exhaust pipe there. So if you look close, really only need about not even a 12-inch section on both sides to be able to connect the exhaust that was already on this truck on to a factory Y pipe piece. The other advantage of the factory Y pipe is we already have the bungs for our upstream O2 sensors. They all plug into the harness, plug and play. Nothing had to be done, out of the ordinary or any serious customization. So the other really cool thing I wanted to show you guys underneath here, if you look at this made in USA, this is actually a polyurethane transmission mount for a Fox body. And I shit you guys not, it bolted right up, no modifications, and fit right underneath here. I believe I did have to hone out these holes just a little bit to be able to get the bolts to go in 100%. Now, nothing's tightened down all the way yet, but I just wanted to show you guys yet another win that I got with, installing this transmission in here. All right, so my other win of the day, and maybe we should just call this video winning, because I wanted to share with you guys, like, sometimes you shouldn't be afraid to try something. Maybe it looks like it's not going to work, or maybe it's like potentially a huge headache. But here's another really interesting win that a lot of you guys are probably going to wonder when you're doing the swap in your whatever project it might be, is the mass airflow meter. So if you look at this looks like a pretty nice factory piece, right? Well, that's because it is. I'm going to show you this exactly how I got this part. I'm actually most proud of this one today. It was sort of like my big reward, if you want to call it that. Let me just get some of these parts out of this scrap bin, aka smashed Fox body. This piece was literally somewhere in here, in between these two components. So you can see how ugly, how baffled, how probably restrictive, and God knows whatever else is going on in this whole system here. We'll just call it emission / sound friendly. So I took my little hacksaw and I chopped right here, and I chopped right here, and then I sanded down the edges, and I got what pretty much looks like a Fox body mass airflow housing. And this guy, allowed me to put the mass airflow sensor right in there like that. You can see our arrow is pointing towards the in. And again, this pipe was just for mock-up initially, But as I'm mocking stuff up, and now that I've got this piece, I could quite easily put a coupler right around here with 2 clamps. And I think we're gonna have the clearance. Maybe might have to adjust this rod here or the support bar. I'm not 100% sure. There's actually tons of room underneath this hood because you can see how high it sits. So that was another really awesome win that I got today. So I was happy about that. Now getting to the cooling system, here's our heater core lines that came out of the truck. You can see they have like a custom little shut-off valve here. Not sure if that was so they can heat things up more, or they just want to shut it off, or maybe, I don't know if the core was leaking. I'm gonna have to ask them what's going on. But the most important part is that these lines were perfect to hook up to the factory fittings here. So all that worked out nicely in my favor. And then lastly here with the cooling system, you can see I've actually got the fan clutch on, and the shroud's just sort of kind of sitting on there because I'm coming up right now with the solution for the brackets to support this radiator, where everything is going to fit the way that it should. Now you can see there's the top part here of the radiator core support. I need to clean that up, and here is the inside part. Now they actually had tabs welded on either side of this U, and those tabs had these rubbers sitting like this, or like this, something like that, that was allowing the radiator to rest on the bottom side down in there. Now obviously this radiator is much deeper, and I would like to use it because it actually has the lines for the transmission cooler. That's the reason why I want to use this, because we have our transmission lines here and here, and then there's another one that's hiding. So once I get the radiator in place, I'll be able to actually reuse these. I'm going to get some barbed fittings and just kind of couple everything back together. I am going to have to get the radiator actual hoses replaced because, yeah, they butchered those, so I won't be able to reuse them. So there you go. There's some of the wins that I've got in terms of putting this thing together. Once I get the radiator sitting in place, I'm just going to actually use some self-tapping screws to be able to get the little brackets that I have, which were actually the brackets that I ground off of this U-shape. I'm totally just repurposing them. So I got some holes drilled that's going to allow these nipples to seat just like factory inside there, and we'll have really good support for that. And then once that's done, I'm going to go back to the fuel system and get the final few elements of the fuel system done. I am running my famous nylon fuel line on this project. Again, it's cheap, it's durable, it's flexible, it's just easy to work with. So I always recommend, you know, use the nylon. If you have access to it, you can get the tool. The tool is about 250 bucks, but that's like a whole kit. So it comes with fittings, it comes with line, it comes with the gun to be able to put all your fittings and couplers on. So to me, good value because I'm always using it. I'm going to get to these support brackets underneath here. And I apologize, guys. Like, I'm not really filming a lot of me doing stuff on this one because I'm learning. And as I'm learning, I'm researching and I'm coming up from underneath or on the top side or doing research or trying to figure out parts. And my mind's just not in the place to necessarily do a video as I'm doing it live on the fly. But once I get this one nailed down and the second one, maybe into a Fox body, we'll do a little bit more in depth and I'll show you guys as everything is happening. But I think one more video on this thing, it should be running. And from there, the drive shaft needs to be taken care of. And then there's going to be some other little maintenance issues, you know, going to get a new master cylinder for one. The Hydro Boost was already rebuilt, so that's good to go. But we want to make sure that now that we have a really up-to-date and reliable drivetrain, that all the suspension and brakes and everything else are just as good. So there you have it. I'm going to get those brackets done for the radiator. Hopefully everything is going to sit in place the way that I want it to. And you know what, maybe I'll just throw the camera down for the sake of it. You guys can follow along with me as I try and get that sorted out. And then we'll do one final closeout video on this build. So let's get to the radiator here. All right, guys, so you can see here I have some angle iron And these were the brackets. I drilled out a hole here, so that hole will be able to slide right into there on the radiator. And like I said, I'm just going to take a self-tapping screw for now, and I'm going to mock everything up in place. And if all this works, then from there I'll weld it. All right, guys, we're in pretty good shape here. The only problem is this bracket is not long enough. I had my holes drilled for, you know, different expectations. So if I re-drill the holes, I bet you could have got it. All right, so my brackets were drilled for a different setup before, but I can still make these ones work. They're just gonna look extra fancy now. So what I need to do, I'm gonna drill a big hole with a bit and go through it with the uni bit. I'm gonna put a big hole up around here, big hole up around here, and then this back side will be where I run the self-tapping screw through, as ultimately these brackets will get welded into place once I know that this proof of concept works. We're getting down to sunset time here, but I got the brackets drilled out, so I'm gonna try this out here, and hopefully these will work, and if they do, then I'll unbolt everything, clean everything up, give fresh coats of paint, and be happy to know the radiator's in place. Leave it a little loose. I can do some measurements here. Jesus. We're almost through. There we go. Okay. Let's try this out now. There. Okay. Just want to say, right around this area. See how we're doing here. Rotate stuff back. You can see a nice little line of clearance here. If you look down here, we have clearance off the crank. And it'll just kind of depend on ultimately what the angle of the radiator is here. It'll probably sit somewhere right around here, which I think is just fine. If you guys actually peek through here, you can see how much room there is between the fan and the blades. So there's no issue there. Enough room to get my hand in between the blades and the shroud, so we're good there. There we go. I'm going to put the U in now and then see about the top of the rad support cover here and see how things look. All right, guys, before the battery dies, I just kind of want to show you again, nothing is bolted on, but our holes are pretty much lined up here. So we got the big U bracket in on the back side. So this probably fits right about here. So what I'll be able to do is probably be able to do a custom bracket from here to here. Just to hold, you gotta remember the radiator's gonna sit right around there. It's gonna sit straight up and down. This is gonna be able to do that. So even if I just do a new piece, almost need like one of those Fox body little radiator covers, you know, the ones that go over your rad support. Something to just grip this and hold this back, and that would actually look pretty darn good. So there we have it. I'm really happy with the way that that looks. Just again, show you guys real quick. Here's our brackets. I'll be able to get these a little straighter or move them over. Again, it's just one self-tapping screw that we've used, so we'll be able to weld these and get them 100% where we want them. But I think we're in good shape. It means that I can get the transmission lines hooked up, I can order my new radiator hoses so I can get this all fixed up. Power steering line needs to get hooked up here. Power steering line back there needs to get hooked up. And we're pretty much going to be ready to get this thing to fire. So there you guys have it. Little update on the Godzilla project in this old ramp truck. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this one. I know it's not Fox body content, but you know what? Godzilla is just as important in terms of Fox bodies and their future. Got to stop the Coyote swaps and keep on going with Godzilla swaps. So there you have it, guys. Thank you again for your support and following along. We'll see you next time here on the Infamous Project.